we're back. We're back with another edition of Top 5 Albums. I'm here with Pete from Ensiferum and Justin from Sorcerer. How is everything going with you guys?
Without the Skype problems, well, we're battling with the 25 minutes. Otherwise, just fine.
all is well and good.
Yeah, we had some technical difficulties. I can't believe it took us 20 minutes to get this whole thing sorted out. But hey, we're here. That's all that matters. And we're here to talk about Slayer. Slayer!
Yeah.
So
right.
after our Top 5 King Diamond, we chatted offline, and we were like, okay, we should do this again. But like, what band should we tackle next? And then I was like, Slayer. Why not Slayer? I mean, they're retired. So technically, whatever we say today, it stays the truth forever because there will be no other albums. At least that's what they're telling us. Yeah. I don't know. You guys believe that?
Unless they don't do like a Judas Priest or an Ozzy Osbourne, where it's like the No More Tours and then No More Tours 2, and then, oh, wait, No More Tours 3.
I would like to believe that this was it.
And I think that it should be it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, even though Repent was... But
no,
stick by it.
Would you get okay? Let's assume that there's no more albums because that's a true possibility. But do you guys really believe that there won't be any more tours? Like, you know, like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, like a reunion tour or something like that? Do you feel like that's completely out of the realm of possibility?
Well, I have a funny feeling that when Kerry King kind of puts his mind to something and says he's done, then he's done. I don't doubt that there's going to be any like sort of maybe Slayer theme stuff where maybe one or two of them jump on something, or maybe Dave Lombardo magically comes back and says, hey, I want to do a Slayer song live, like a one-off. But I don't think there's actually going to be a tour.
Yeah, I don't think it would be weird. But never say never anyway, but I kind of hope that does not happen, you know. These guys should stand by their words.
Yeah. Would you guys be okay then, perhaps with the Big Four? Like if they did like 4 shows or something like that as the Big Four reunion kind of thing? That it was done in the past, but there's still so much demand and so much love for another Big Four tour.
In all honesty, I would rather see another Big Four consisting of bands like Testaments or Overkill, Sodom, and Creator. That would be so much better. In my opinion,
I would go see that. Yeah.
I mean, Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, and Slayer, they did that already, and it was a big hype. It was a really cool idea, but I think that there's more within the genre that speaks volumes compared to the Big Four that is or has been marketed. But yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to going to see Slayer one more time, but I would really rather they just pack it in. It's a nice memory. I saw them on their last tour. Just leave it at that. Don't come back and milk the money cow.
Before we start talking about the top 5 albums, that was one of the things I wanted to ask you guys. When was the last time you guys saw Slayer? Did you guys both catch them during this last farewell tour?
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I saw the last half of the show.
Yeah.
It's an interesting story, but you know, it was my flight was delayed, and I got there, and the people at the venue had no idea about what is guest list, and they were just making me run all over the place, and I missed half of the set. So I saw the last 45 minutes of the show. But anyway, I saw them.
Where was it? Where did you see them?
Vienna, Austria.
Ah, nice.
Yeah.
I saw them actually in Helsinki. So, and yeah, I caught the full show, but I've seen Slayer like, I don't know, like 5 or 6 times. I saw them with Jeff Hanneman. I saw them without Jeff Hanneman. You know, I don't think Lombardo was on this tour either. It was it Paul Bostaff that was on the drums?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I've seen them with both Paul Bostaff and Dave Lombardo. So
I saw them twice during the farewell tour. I actually caught them at the Toronto show, and then I watched them at Heavy Montreal. They were the headliners at Heavy Montreal on the second night of the festival. So I got to see them twice. But they were the first band ever that I saw live back in 1994, when they were on tour for the Divine Intervention album. And opening for them was a little unknown band called Machine Head. At the time, they were unknown. Like nobody knew who the hell Machine Head was. But so that was my first time seeing Slayer, and just like Justin, I think I've seen them like 6, 7 times, something like that. Unfortunately, I never got to see them with Dave Lombardo. I saw Jeff Hanneman multiple times, but I never got to see them with Dave Lombardo. So that's the only caveat for me.
I think the first time I saw them was actually at the Gigantor in Toronto.
Wow, that's a long time ago.
That was 2004, 2005, if I'm not mistaken. And that was actually a pretty cool tour. It was with Arch Enemy, Dream Theater played. No, sorry. Wrong tour. It's not Gigantor. It was, what's it called? The Alliance tour. Unholy Alliance.
Unholy Alliance.
Yeah, so that was the first time that I saw Slayer. It was the same venue, Molson Amphitheater, but yeah.
Yeah, now it's called Budweiser Stage. Different beer, same shit.
Yeah, same shit. It's still no good.
All right, so top 5 Slayer albums of all time. This was really interesting. Obviously we're going to start with number 5 and work our way to number 1. But this was very interesting list because compared to like King Diamond, where there was some cross-pollination, like we all pretty much had the same albums, just in different order in our top 5.
Yeah.
Slayer kind of offer a little bit of a different vibe. We all, the 3 of us, picked the same album as number 1, which didn't happen for King Diamond, but it happened for Slayer. We all picked the same album for number 1. But after that, it was pretty much like all over the place. We had some similarities, but there was some albums that was really surprised. And perhaps the biggest surprise for me comes at number 5 with Divine Intervention. Only one of us picked that album in their top 5, and that was Pete. But he picked it so high in his top 5 that made it to the overall top 5.
Yes!
Yeah. So it was not on my list, and it was not on Justin's list. So I'm going to let Pete go first. Why Divine Intervention on your top 5?
It became a very dear album to me at this. How the fuck do you say that thing? I should Google that one, but my phone is occupied at the moment. And we were around 14, 13 years old. It's like this 1-week summer camp type of thing with school, with like Bible shit or whatever. I don't know what that one is called
like
in English.
Bible camp almost?
Bible camp.
Not Bible camp. That sounds completely off and wrong. No, it's not that, but something like that. Rippikoulu, if somebody wants to translate that one. Over there,
I'll look it up.
One guy had Divine Intervention album with him, and we were listening to that one for the whole fucking week. And every time we had time, there was a fireplace that was literally really high. We put all the blankets and pillows on the floor, and we were stage diving from that fireplace onto the floor. It was so cool. And after that one, Divine Intervention has just stayed with me until this day. It's a very dear album to me, and it fits with that Bible school thing pretty well, also from the title. Like afterwards, I actually realized what it meant. The album title means
Confirmation School.
Yes, that one. Yes.
Okay, so it's not Bible camp; it's confirmation school. All right.
Yeah.
But it still goes with the theme of the album, so Divine Intervention fits perfectly.
Absolutely.
I would say so. Yeah, it's a pretty good fit.
What do you think, Justin? What do you think about Divine Intervention? I know you didn't vote for it, but it's number 5 on our list. So, what's your thoughts?
I mean, I got into Slayer pretty late. I was listening to a lot of like, Swedish death metal and stuff like that. I never really got into Slayer until kind of later. But when I did get into it, was like the staples, like the old 80s stuff and their 90s stuff, like the early 90s stuff. So for me, Divine Intervention, it was just like a totally different sound because you didn't have Lombardo. It was Bowstaff on the drums for the first time.
For the first time, yes.
So the production for me on the drums, it was a bit thin actually, and I think I'm not sure if that was like deliberate, just to like kind of change the sound because people were used to Lombardo's playing. I know they kind of had a falling out there, so I know maybe they wanted to deviate from that sound. But all in all, actually, I think that this record actually has a really doomy feel to it, to be honest. Like when you listen to a song like 213, it's really like slow, doomy, grinding, and it's really fun to listen to. So I think it's actually a really kind of a diamond in the rough when it comes to Slayer, to be honest. It's a really good comeback album because I think it was released 4 or 5 years after Seasons in the Abyss.
Yeah, that was the Decades of Aggression live one in between, squeezed in between those two releases.
Yes, I mean, I think, listening to it's one of the records from Slayer that I've listened to the least. But after we discussed which records were on the list, I've been playing it because it is the one that I listened to the least. So I've been playing that the most. And just finding some real cool gems on there. And I think that Tom sounds really cool. It's got this really cool vibe about it, and just sounds good.
It sounds actually fantastic.
Yeah,
I really love the drum sounds on that album. Actually,
the drum sounds aren't bad. I just think it's a bit, in comparison to Lombardo, it's a bit thinner than what you heard on like South of Heaven or Season of the Abyss. The drum sounds are actually a lot thinner.
Yeah,
and as they progress with Paul Bostaff to the records after and the God Hates Us All record, like the drums are really like in your face, like so I think it's just they were playing around with the new member, the new guy, having some fun. Let's see what kind of sounds we can get out of him. But it's a fantastic record.
See, for me, this album was the first time that I saw Slayer. They were on tour for this album. I can't remember how old I was. I was like 15 at the time, something like that. That was my first ever concert. So based on that alone, it should have made it to my top 5 list, right? But it didn't. But looking back, I look at Slayer, like 2 eras of Slayer, if you will. I look at the Dave Lombardo era all the way to Season in the Abyss, and then I look at Paul Bostaff era afterwards. I know that was Dave Lombardo came back later, and then he left again. But I almost look at Slayer as pre-Decades of Aggression and post-Decades of Aggression Slayer when I think about the band. So when I think about post-Decades of Aggression Slayer, now looking back, this album is one of the best that they released after that period. For me, it's just really, when you look at it, it's really good. But I remember I remember that time period when the album came out, and considering how good Seasons in the Abyss was, and how much then Decades of Aggression, that live album, that double live album, was really good too. This one to me kind of felt a little bit as a it's just a little bit of the air came out of the balloon. It felt to me, because as a fan, I was kind of comparing it with the previous record, and it just didn't feel like it continued. Maybe the drums were different. I was a big Lombardo fan, so maybe that affected a little bit how I looked at the album. But I felt that overall, while the other records from Slayer up until that point were very consistent from the first song to the last song, almost, I'm not saying the songs were repetitive or sounded alike, but there was a consistency in the sound. I felt with Divine Intervention, the album had a lot of ups and downs. Like some songs almost had a little bit, like you said, a doom vibe, very gloomy. And then some tracks almost felt like punk rock, just like very aggressive, straightforward, in your face kind of tracks. So it was an album that, looking back, it grew on me. But at the time, I was deeply disappointed with that record. And I remember being very disappointed with that record. But looking back, it's a much better album than when I gave it credit at that time when I listened to it.
I think when that album came out, that was like the year of disappointments. I'm pretty sure that's the same year that Black Sabbath released Forbidden and Iron Maiden released the X Factor. So I can imagine a lot of fans were pretty disappointed with comparing the band as it was to what it was. So
I think also Megadeth's Euthanasia came out at that time too.
But there's some really good tracks on that album.
There is, but like if you go from Rust in Peace to that one.
Well, you have Countdown to Extinction in the middle there as well. So I mean,
you do. Yeah.
But I get what you mean. It's
a pretty high jump.
It sounds like that's the year that in metal
or low, kind of.
Yeah, in metal, at least, when those records, like, it sounds, I'm pretty sure it's around that time that record came out. I could be wrong. We'll have to Google it or get slashed and bashed and trolled in the comments for even saying that they came out the same year. But yeah, that was like a dark time for metal because they were trying to find their footing and be relevant still in the world and trying new things. And I got to give them credit for being creative and trying to find their footing.
Yeah, and
Just
I don't mean to take us off topic here, but that same year, if I'm not mistaken, Pantera Far Beyond Driven came out at that same year as well. And looking back now, I really enjoyed that album. But at the time when it came out, compared to Vulgar Display of Power, I was so disappointed with that album too. So it was like a year of disappointments. It's just like I just felt like all the bands that I loved were letting me down on that at that time period. Like nobody was doing what they were doing before. Everybody was being a little bit more creative.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Juggulator as
Yeah.
well. Judas Priest. No.
The list goes on.
You just name them off. Maybe we
Yeah.
should do top 5 disappointments for the year.
Yeah, top 5
Well,
disappointments.
2020 is an easy one. You know, the whole fucking year is to just fuck
Yeah.
off.
It's a write-off.
Yeah. This whole year is a write-off for sure.
Yeah.
Moving on to number 4, we have one that was on everybody's. I think this was on everybody's list. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm almost 100% sure this made everybody's list, and that is God Hates Us All. I think we all had it at in different positions, but
Yeah.
overall, it finished at number 4. Justin, what do you think of God Hates Us All?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I got into Slayer quite late. I was listening to other stuff, and I'm pretty sure that this is one of the first records that I heard from Slayer. And I remember just that the chorus in Disciple, I just loved it. God Hates Us All. Like it just, when you listen to that song, you can't not headbang. Like it's just Slayer gold. And then I believe Bloodline's on that one as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, those 2 songs for me are just super strong singles, and yeah, the whole record in itself is really good. I think the band, they come into like kind of that modern era because that was released in 99, 2000, thereabouts, and that's where you had like all the new metal stuff coming out, and Slayer just came out with this hard hitting like fuck you to that kind of music and came out with God Hates Us All, and I thought that's brilliant. I'm sold. I loved it. So, but it was those 2 tracks for me that really took it. And the Bloodline video is brilliant. It's pretty dark, but I enjoy it.
Pete, what do you think of God Hates Us All?
It's an awesome album. I just love it. You know, like what Justice has said, when the God Hates Us All comes on the speakers, I just have to shout it with me, like God hates us all.
Yeah.
Because I think it's fucking true.
Yeah, especially
Also.
this year.
Yeah,
Especially this year.
Yeah. This year emphasizes on that one, yes. And also, it has very good lyrical lines on it. Like, I keep the Bible in a pool of blood, so none of its claws can affect me. Oh, yes. And, you know, it's very brutal. It got the fast pace, got some slower pace on it. It's very much in your face.
Yeah.
Yeah, I dig it a lot. That's also an album when you have to play loud.
Yes. I remember picking up the CD at HMV when those places were still around. They still existed. And it came with a censored sleeve on it for the cover. Because if I remember correctly, the cover was a Bible with nails sticking through it. And here in Toronto or in Canada, that cover was censored. So it had like a white sheet that said Slayer God Hates Us All with 3 inverted crosses. I guess that makes it better. But it was like, it was kind of cool. Like it made it even more badass that the fact that they censored the cover, it made it even like more Slayer. You know what I mean? If that's even possible. But I really like this album. I think from that new era of Slayer, this is their best album that they've released because perhaps, I don't know if you guys agree or not, but perhaps this album is the most throwback album that they released since their early days. I kind of felt like this, if this album had come out after Seasons in the Abyss, would have fit perfectly. Like it just chronologically, it almost feels like just a very throwback album. Like Justin said, in an era of new metal, with every band was changing their sound to adapt to the new hype and the new thing that was selling music at the time. Slayer was like, fuck that. we're Slayer. We're gonna do even heavier than we did before. And they put out this record, and musically is very heavy. But one of the things that I really like about this album, and Pete touched on it, is the lyrical content. I think the lyrical content on this album is just outstanding. There's so many cool lines, like the God Hates Us All chorus, like just like when he says it over and over, it seems like every time he says it, there's more aggression in the way he's saying it. Like he feels it even more with every single time that he's saying it. It's just such a great record all around.
Yeah, I think it just builds like in that, like that chorus. It's almost funny. You're really right about that. It almost like feels like it gets louder and louder, and it's more pungent and more in your face the more he says it. And the song itself is so short and sweet. It's like only like I think it's under 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's just so when you hear that, it's like it just whack smacks you in the face, and you're just like, what happened? What did I just hear? That was amazing.
Yeah.
So
also, I have to bring out the song Exile.
Yeah.
Now, somebody was so pissed off when he wrote those lyrics. Like, seriously.
Yeah, I don't know if it was Kerry King or Tom Araya, because they normally share, but I know Kerry King writes a lot of the lyrics as well.
Yeah, for that song, I don't know. Normally they do like co-writing, but I would say probably the majority is done by Kerry King, but Tom Araya also does some of the lyrics. I wouldn't be surprised if that's a Kerry King lyric, though.
He's an angry dude.
He looks angry.
He looks angry. He's actually scarier with hair.
I think he's scary. Doesn't matter what he does. Like the guy just has this aura about him that, like, he takes no prisoners. You know what I mean? Like he just doesn't take any BS. You know.
Yeah.
But sometimes those guys are some of the nicest people you'll ever meet. So it's just the appearance that has that rough appearance to him.
Yeah.
On number 3, we have Rain in Blood. All right, number 3, Rain in Blood. I don't know if this made it to your list, Pete. Was it in your list? I don't remember.
No, it was not, actually.
Yes, I was being sarcastic, actually. How does Rain in Blood not make your list?
It's also, I discovered Slayer with the Seasons in the Abyss era, so that time period. So the stuff before that one I heard way later, and Rain in Blood is just half an hour fucking ear massacre. It's so fucking brutal. It's like halfway through it, 15 minutes, you're like, damn, my ears are bleeding, but I still do like it, you know. But then I had to put them on a level. Same thing with the King Diamond. It tore my soul apart, and same with the Slayer thing, man. It wasn't easy. That one is like all the way coming out from the song structures and everything. It just did not make it the cut.
It's fair.
Interesting.
Yeah,
it's fair. I understand. Like, you got two totally different bands, really, when you listen to like the first 3 albums, or I guess you would say 4 albums, because Haunting the Chapel is an EP, but it's technically counted as an album.
Fuck, that is good.
It's good. Yeah, it's really good.
It's really good.
But you've got Show No Mercy, Haunting the Chapel, Hell Awaits, and then Rain in Blood. And I found that with Rain in Blood, that was like the first kind of... I'd heard Angel of Death before, and I remember when I heard Tom Araya's scream at the beginning, I laughed. I was just like, what is this? Like, that's hilarious. And then listening to the lyrics, I was just like, how can they sing this? Like, they're singing about Josef Mengele's, like, you know, the Nazi concentration camp doctor. And it's just like, wow, like, what text, and that kind of lured me in. I was like, what lies beneath this glorious album? And that's why I picked it at 3. I think I actually rated it pretty high. It was either 2 or 3 on my list anyways.
It was 3 on your list. It was 3 on my list as well.
Yeah, and I mean, listening to it, I think that Like on Show No Mercy, Haunting the Chapel, and Hell Awaits, you can really hear like the throwback to where they're getting their influences from, like the new album and stuff like that, like stuff that was floating around, just like Metallica or Megadeth and stuff like that. You know, they had also a lot of punk influence, like the Motorhead and stuff like Venom. But I think on Rain and Blood, they actually found their footing as Slayer. And I mean, listening to that album, Jesus Saves, great track. Angel of Death, also great track. I'm actually quite partial. It's what's it called? Criminally Insane. I think that's what that's called. I have to look it up. Criminally Insane. Which starts off with the drums, and it's. I think Lombardo's drums on this album sound so good. They're just huge, especially in Raining Blood, where it comes in like that, bum bum bum. Like I just love it. And but
It's like a thunderstorm, you know, like it feels like there's a thunderstorm happening, you know.
Yeah, and I really like that they utilize that as an effect. But I have to go with Pete on this one and say there was a lot of noise, because let's face it, they're not. It's not Alex Skolnick or Kirk Hammett's doing the solos or Dave Mustaine. It's Kerry King and Jeff Hanneman, and sometimes it's just noise, and it's not even in key. It's just noise, like whammy bar, and I'm gonna hit as many fucking notes as I can, and it's gonna sound demonic, and I think that's what they were going for, just kind of that chaos when they do those solos, and it fits this album really good. And the artwork on this album, this is where we see like the traditional, which came with Season of the Abyss, even the Christ Illusion that came out 2006. They're using the same artist, and I really like the artwork. It's just really abstract and cool. So like when you picked up the record, you're just like, whoa, this thing looks fucking evil.
It does.
For me, this album, there were two things. I love the play on words of the rain and blood, raining blood, like that play on words. It took me a while as a kid, because English being my second language, it took me a while to understand that play on words. But that was something that once I got it, I was like, wow, that's kind of like what a nice little caveat that's there. But I'm going to be honest, this album got me with Angel of Death. I mean, that opening song, like you're saying about Tom Murray, when he screams, I was like, oh, I'm all over this. Like, first of all, I'm a huge fan of history, of reading about history, knowing about history, that kind of stuff. I'm just a huge history buff. So for them to have the guts, because I remember at the time, a lot of people were accusing them of being Nazis and whatever, because they were saying that by creating this song, they were promoting that ideology. So for them to have the nuts to say, hey, you know what, we don't give a shit, we're going to create the song. It's not about the ideology, it's about telling a story in a song. You know what I mean? Yeah. And if you pay attention to the lyrics, and if you listen to the lyrics, there's nothing pro-Nazi in the lyrics of that song. You know what I mean? It's just, they're just telling the facts of what happened. And in the end, he escaped, and he never got caught, and he didn't get charged for his crimes and whatever. So if you listen to the lyrics, there's nothing pro ideology in there. But at the time, I remember them doing an interview on MTV, Headbangers Ball. I think it was Headbangers Ball. I don't know if Headbangers Ball was around at the time, but they did an interview. I saw an interview somewhere, and they were being accused of that. And to me, it's kind of silly. But that song, it stayed with me. I love the historical impact that the lyrics have. The song is badass, is brutal, and for people who don't understand Slayer and who don't know Slayer, I still sometimes I've at least for us on our channel, some people we've checked out this song, because I wanted my son to listen to this song, and we had some people criticizing us for doing this song on the channel because of the whole connotation with Nazis and whatever. And to me, that's completely silly. Like, you need to learn about history in order for you not to repeat it, not just pretend that it never happened. And to me, this song, and headbanging to this song does not mean that I condone anything that happened that's being expressed within the lyrics of the song. I think you have to separate the two worlds. So this track is just, that track for me sold me on the album. But the album, like Pete said, and like you said, Justin, it's just like, holy crap, it's like 30 minutes, I think it's 35 minutes, if I'm not mistaken, something like that, close to 35 minutes. Is it
Oh,
30
it's less than half an hour, 29 minutes, I
29
think,
and
something
change?
like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just brutal onslaught for that time period. I mean, it's just like relentless. It's like you're getting waterboard with music. That's perhaps
I tried to look it up.
the best definition for that album.
It was the limit or the special edition on Spotify, so it's longer. There's extra tracks. So,
Yeah.
but I think that, like you said, like where we're talking about lyrical content as well earlier on. I mean, I think actually Angel of Death has one of the best death metal lines in the history of, you know, thrash and death metal, and that's when he says "Monarch to the kingdom of the dead." That's so heavy. That's just like, oh, so good.
That is it
Brilliant.
is. So, and number two now, this album, I have such a deep connection with this album for many reasons. But at number two, we have South of Heaven. Pete, I'm going to let you go first on South of Heaven. What are your feelings about this record?
It's awesome, epic fucking album again from my favorite band, Slayer. All right. Yeah, this is also I was talking about this album with our drummer Janne, and he was saying like, yeah, it's actually a very melodically sang album. Like there's a lot of melody in the vocals. I was like, yeah, I did not actually pay attention to that one that much until he said that one, and I'm like, yeah, because you don't hear that one too much before this album, actually, the melodic vocaling of Tom. And then I had to listen to the album again. I was like, damn, this dude can actually sing a little bit, which is good.
Very good.
And of course, then you have the whole track list is just hit with zero misses on this album.
I totally.
The sound is good. Songs are fucking good. It works. It's, you know, if you don't like Slayer, just fuck off. You know.
That should be a T-shirt.
It should be. Let's do it.
Justin, South of Heaven for you.
I mean, South of Heaven is like again, the artwork is brilliant. But when you're kind of dissecting this album, this is where Slayer takes the bridge from Rain and Blood to Seasons of the Abyss. It's just, I don't know, like one thing that I think is very underrated with Slayer is their use of like picking like, you know, these small kind of clean guitars, like this, not strumming, but picking like clean guitars. You hear it in like Seasons of the Abyss and stuff like that. But yeah, I just think it sounds really cool. And yeah, there's not a bad song on this album, and it's just slower. And I think that they hit their stride on this album, and it's just, you know, the expectations of what Slayer could be would be the follow-up, of course, in my opinion. But yeah, I think they just hit the nail on the head with this one. It was just such a good record, and opening with South of Heaven, like the title track, like normally it's in the middle somewhere, like it's like the classic 80s, we're gonna throw the title track in the middle somewhere. But it was so good. Like, I don't know, it's just one that sits with me really good, something that you can groove to, and it's an album that you just don't get tired of, to be honest.
Yeah.
I actually discovered Slayer through South of Heaven. There was a kid in my school that used to graffiti the walls with the word Slayer and South of Heaven all the time. And I was like, man, you know, like who the fuck is Slayer? But like every single time I went to class, like there was a graffiti of Slayer or Slayer carved into the wooden desks at school. Because every time he would have a class, every desk that he sat on, he would carve the word Slayer on, and South of Heaven would be always around, right? So I was like, and the S, like with the lightning, kind of like the lightning bolt of the S, and I was like, fuck, who the fuck is Slayer? So South of Heaven is how I discovered Slayer, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, I didn't realize what South of Heaven implied until I was like in my 30s. Because once again, English was my second language, right? So I was like, you know, South of Heaven, listen to the album, whatever. Then I remember one time I was home listening to the album, and I turned to my wife and I'm like, shit, South of Heaven is hell. That's exactly what it is, South of Heaven. And she's like, yeah, like well, you just figure that out now? And I'm like, holy shit, yes, I just figured that out now. Like, I can't believe I've been listening to this album for like 15 years. And only now I realized what the freaking title meant. Wow. Like, I feel like an idiot. But it's just made the connection with the album even stronger, because then I went back and I started listening to the album again, and I started to pick up a lot more on the innuendos of the music and how the record. I really love the more of the slow buildup that the songs have. It's a really well constructed album from a structural perspective, really well put together. And like you guys both said, there's not one throwaway song on that record. It doesn't. Every single song could be a single. Every single song is magnificently put together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a really, really good album. And in regards to your friend, I'm glad that it was his desk that he was carving Slayer into and not his arm, like most of the fans did back in the day.
Yeah, no, he was just carving the desks because the desks were made of wood. So he would carve them up, and he would graffiti every single wall. Whatever he went, he would graffiti the word Slayer on it. So thanks to him, I discovered Slayer with South of Heaven. So that's pretty good. I can't complain. I'm not condoning the vandalism, but thanks to his vandalism, I discovered Slayer.
Yeah, brilliant.
Brilliant man.
Yes, and number one, unanimous. All three of us picked at number one, Seasons in the Abyss. Justin, I was gonna let you go first.
You can go first this time. You let me go first the last few times. So.
All right. So Seasons in the Abyss. To me, I felt that this was not even close. When I think of the best Slayer album of all time, to me, Seasons in the Abyss is like, we can talk about what comes second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever. That I'm up for discussion. But as far as number one, Seasons in the Abyss, there is no discussion. That is the best album of all time. I think they took, in my opinion, the way I look at this record, they took everything that they had built up until that moment. They took elements from Raining Blood. They took elements from South of Heaven. And even from the previous records. And they just were able to incorporate all of those elements into Seasons in the Abyss and finally find what I call the Slayer soundscape fingerprint. This is Slayer. This is how we sound like, from a sound perspective, but also from a lyrical perspective. The lyrics were not throwaways. Like, if you look at songs like Dead Skin Mask or Skeletons of Society, all of these songs, Expendable Youth. I remember at the time being a young kid, listening to Expendable Youth. That song really resonated with me. It really had an impact with me because I felt like I was expendable. I felt like not only my parents didn't care about what I had to say, the world didn't care about what I had to say. So that song really resonated with me from a musical perspective, had the aggression that I had built inside. And from a lyrical perspective, it had the same aggression that I had built in. It's like somebody was saying the things that I was feeling. So Seasons in the Abyss to me is Slayer, is the DNA of the band is on that record.
It's brilliant, yeah. Yeah, I think that with this album, Slayer hit their stride finally, and it's the pinnacle Slayer album. It's their, it's just their best album ever. And I mean, when you look at when that record was recorded in songs like Expendable Youth, War Ensemble, the US was going through the Gulf War and stuff like that. And they actually filmed the video for Season of the Abyss in the Middle East, which was kind of a cool, like...
in Egypt, right?
Was it in Egypt? Yeah, sorry, it was in Egypt, yeah. But it's still... it's still like, taking that and like, I don't know, just throwing it back. Like they were angry at what was going on, and it was fairly political by all means, like Hollow Point and stuff like that. It's just so good. Skeletons of Society, Dead Skin Mask about Ed Gein, like the serial killer in the USA. It's just great. And I think actually the title track is their coup de grace, their crowning achievement. It's just such a beautiful song, and Tom sounds great on it. And the drums, again, Lombardo's drums are huge. So I think that, where South of Heaven was kind of they were toning it down a bit thrash wise, but then when you get to the Seasons, like when War Ensemble kicks in the intro, it's so like, ugh, in your face, just hits you in the gut, and just like, all right, here we go. Let me just sit here, adjust myself in my seat, have a beer, and
Put on seatbelt.
yeah, put on a seatbelt and hope that Tom doesn't blow my brains out. But yeah, it's just it's a phenomenal record, and yeah, I think that this sees the band in their stride, really, and it is, like you said, the archetypal Slayer. It is Slayer. If that's the first record I recommend to anybody, like I want to listen to Slayer, what should I get into? Seasons. Listen to Seasons first. Always. So good.
Yeah. Well, kind of hard to add anything up from after you guys talked over here, but going back to South of Heaven, also have to say that album has the world's best drum sound. No arguments over here. So then also Seasons in the Abyss. The sound is fucking perfect on that album. The drums, guitars, I think bass is there. Can't hear it really, but I think it's there. And Tom's voice is just like so spot on.
Yeah.
When the war ensemble goes on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what to say. It's just perfection. And the title track, the last one, longest song, also most likely from Slayer's catalog ever. Yeah, so like I think it clocks close to 7 minutes or something.
Past 7 minutes, I believe.
It's almost 8 minutes.
Yeah, it's over 7 minutes. I think it's their longest song. I mean, I haven't looked at all their songs, but I believe it's their longest song.
Yeah, but that song is fuck. They're also good. They're all very, very good songs. Highly also, if somebody would want to know where to start to listen from Slayer, I would say this album too.
Yeah.
It's just really well-rounded. It's just incredible record, from the music to the lyrics to how everything is put together. It's just one of those records that everything fit in place. Everything was right. They had acquired all the necessary knowledge. It was like a perfect storm of events, and everything culminated with that record. It's just one of those albums that it doesn't matter when you listen to it. You could have listened to it back when it was released. You can listen to it today, 20 years from now. It's gonna stand the test of time, regardless of when it is that you decide to put it on. It's just such an outstanding record. And that Skin Mask is not my favorite song of the album, but it ranks really high. Like the darkness of that song is just like chilling. It's just chilling. Like it's just it's just unbelievable track. I think that was one of the first songs I showed to my son when I wanted to introduce him to Slayer. I think that was maybe not the first song, but it was one of the first songs, because the storytelling aspect of the song and the history behind the song, in terms of talking about a serial killer, and you kind of see the song from the eyes of the serial killer. So it's such a great track. But the whole album, I mean.
I think a funny story is I used to have like one of those like interchangeable CD players where you could put 5 discs in and it would go on rotation.
Ooh.
And I remember I forgot to put the Slayer CD out. I had like Pink Floyd and stuff like that because I was going to go to bed. I had to get up for work and oh fuck it, So I forgot Season of the Abyss in my. And Dead Skin Mask actually comes on, and it was at that point where at the end of the song she says, "Let me out," and she starts screaming. It scared the shit out of me. I was like, "Holy fuck, what's going on?" Because I normally slept with the windows open. I was like, "Is there somebody getting hurt outside?" Jesus! And then I heard the next song kick in directly after. Boom, 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 boom,
down. Yeah.
Skeletons. So I was just like. Yeah. Oh, okay. It was Slayer. It was just Slayer. No worries. Thank God. There's nobody.
Nobody died.
Nobody's passed away outside. For God.
Yeah, this album is just phenomenal. But Slayer is one of those iconic bands. They had a great career, similar to King Diamond, and the difficulties that we had on putting a top 5 list. This one was not any easier, that's for sure. But I just thought it was a lot of fun to do, and I thought that was really interesting that we all three picked the number one album, which wasn't the same for King Diamond, but here we're all on the same wavelength. Seasons in the Abyss is number one.
Number one, always. And actually, just one more thing about that album as well. Like, you had the Black Album come out that year and Countdown Extinction by Megadeth. And then Anthrax was doing something with Public Enemy at the time, like this whole... I think they actually started nu metal, so we should blame Anthrax for nu metal and Limp Bizkit. But actually, Slayer of the Big Four actually held true, and they kept that momentum. And with this album, I think it was actually... Personally, I like this album light years more than the Black Album, Countdown to Extinction, and whatever Anthrax was doing at that time. You know, it was just it's just a solid record. So, yeah, I'm really glad that we were all in agreement that this was the number one Slayer record.
I think around that time, it may not have been the same year, but around that time, isn't that when Anthrax released Sound of the White Noise? I think it was same era there.
Around the same time, yeah, I think.
It's around the same time, I believe.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And the song was Bring the Noise, by the way.
Yeah. It's a good track, though. I like it.
It's a good
Bring
track.
the noise!
Yeah. It's, you know, Flavor Flav's doing his thing.
Yeah.
No, actually, I'm wrong. Sound of the White Noise, I think, came in the earlier came in 93, 94, probably around the same time as the previous albums that we're talking about that we were all disappointed by. At this time period was Persistence of Time. That was the Anthrax album, was Persistence of Time, which, by the way, to me is the best Anthrax album of all time. I mean, maybe that's for another video, for another list, but I love that Anthrax album. All right, guys, thank you very much for taking the time to chat about Slayer's best albums ever. This was a lot of fun, as always.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Thanks for taking the time. And maybe we'll do this again. We don't know. The folks at home have to keep checking out. Maybe there'll be another one.
Yeah. You know, Anthrax would actually be a good one because they also have long history. A lot of bands, well, they're still on. And they had some couple of singers in their band and stuff, so it could get very, very interesting too.
We can't do Metallica because we're all going to be in agreement, like just mismatching the
Master of Puppets and Ride the Lightning.
It's going to be up until the Black Album. With Metallica, it's going to be everything up until the Black Album, and then there's like a black hole in space with nothing.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm being unfair. Hardwire was actually a pretty good album, but yeah, Metallica would be an easy one perhaps to put together. But Anthrax would definitely be something interesting to discuss because they've had a really long history as well. And like you said, changes in lead singers, changes in band members, so definitely affected their sound over the time. But once again, thank you very much for taking the time to chat about Slayer, and I'll see you guys at perhaps the next video.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, take care, guys.
Take care.